O thou who defies the definition of man, thou who throughout the ages men have regarded as in some mysterious way creator and preserver, here we sit in this place, a church, on this day which we call your day, and by our presence here on this day we acknowledge before you and our neighbors that we also regard you in some mysterious way creator and preserver of our lives. And thus we call you Father, Father in heaven, Father Almighty. But Father, the words are so often empty, so often more an expression of what we desire to be true than what we confidently affirm as our beliefs. But so often, O Father, the transforming power which should come with belief is absent, and fear instead of trust rule our lives, and selfishness instead of obedience rules our lives, and hate and mistrust of our brother instead of love and reconciliation rule our lives. O Lord, Father, we do believe, only help our unbelief. Help our unbelief when our children, our parents, our wives, our husbands need the love which will enable them to become and remain persons instead of things. Help our unbelief when we are confronted with a choice between great causes where the forces of right and wrong, evil and righteousness are at battle. Help our unbelief when apathy and indifference began to creep in. Help our unbelief when death seems stronger than life, when hate seems stronger than love, when war seems stronger than peace, when economic values seem stronger than human values, when oppression seems stronger than justice. Help our unbelief, O Father, Creator, Preserver, so that we may choose those things which you also have created to triumph, to be victorious, to endure. Help our unbelief, O Father, so that we may unite our lives, our resources, our talents with that which is eternal. This is our prayer, which we pray in the name of your Son, who taught us to pray together, saying, in the New Testament lesson we read of the Thessalonians, among whom, when the gospel was preached, they experienced the coming of a new power. They experienced not just so many words being said, but they experienced coming among them a power which made a difference in their lives, which brought about a change within their lives. Christianity, so often, for so many, is just words. And yet, so many, even ourselves, desire for it to be something more. We desire for ourselves this power which the Thessalonians experienced among themselves. We desire this for ourselves. How is it possible for us to find this power? This power that makes a difference, that brings about a change. How can we move beyond the level merely of dealing with words to a deeper level, a level where we find something which will make a difference for us? This morning I would like to suggest 3 aids for finding this power. 3 aids for moving beyond the drab, dull level of words to a level where perhaps we can feel that something is happening, where perhaps we can experience a growth and a change and a renewal within our own lives. The first aid, the importance of being open to experience. The importance of being open to experience. There was a time in Christianity and the history of religion in recent times when religion equaled experience. And each person had his own religious experience to share with other persons, and he had no hesitance about sharing it with the other person. And truth for this person equaled what he felt. Truth, not something which was logical or intelligible even, but rather truth was what he felt. And these persons latched on to one incident in the life of John Wesley and held it up as the most important of all the incidents in his life. That time when John Wesley reports that he felt his heart strangely warmed on that evening at Aldersgate. Well, we have moved away from that emphasis in religion, the emphasis upon feeling. Things get rather dull when all that you do in religion is simply share over and over and over again with one another the religious experience which you have had. And yet, as we have moved away from that emphasis, perhaps we have swung to the opposite extreme. The day in which philosophy was ruled by the logical positivist, the day in which the value systems which men held was essentially a materialistic value system, a day in which we de-emphasized the importance of feeling and experience, and the day in which the key words were precision and the key machine was the computer. And in religion, the important thing was not feeling, but the mind, what you thought with your mind, with the intellect. And in worship, the important thing was not the free expression of joy, but rather the form, the ritual, and respectability was the standard by which all was judged. Whenever a society reaches the point of rigidity, whenever it reaches the point where feelings are pushed to the side to this extent, it seems that there is always some person or some movement or some force that comes along and breaks in and makes men aware of the situation they actually have reached. Such was the woman at Bethany who came up and anointed Jesus' feet with rather precious ointment as he was on the way to Jerusalem. A person who was so joyful, a person who was experiencing such tremendous things in her life that she just wanted to do this act of kindness for Jesus. And she was rebuked by those people standing about her, essentially saying, you should control your feelings more than this. The important thing is not the experiences you have had. The important thing is that you follow the law precisely and that you control yourself. And Jesus, however, says, leave her alone. Leave her alone. It is a beautiful thing that she has done. It is a beautiful thing that she has done. Or maybe the counterpart of this woman at Bethany in contemporary life, maybe the counterpart would be the hippies. The emphasis which they put upon the value in experience, the value in feeling, the way in which they have pointed to there being something beyond prestige and a bank balance and status, where importance also is placed on feeling and experience, and they use drugs to help heighten the feelings, the experiences, rather than alcohol to dull the feelings and experiences. An openness, a recognition and an enjoyment of the experiences in life. Well, certainly, I have no desire to condone drugs, nor do I have any desire to go back to the shouting and the rolling in the aisles in worship services. And yet, I wonder if Christianity is not more than just the acceptance of beliefs. And I wonder if worship is not more than just going through the prescribed rituals, the prescribed forms. And I wonder if life is not more than just the fulfilling of a function, the doing of a job. You know, if we drew a caricature of a man, I wonder what we would come up with. Perhaps we would come up with a man with a little bitty body and a great big head. The importance of the brain. Or maybe we'd come up with a man with a little bitty head and great big arms and hands and muscles to do the manual labor. But you know, I doubt if we would come up with a man with a great big heart, emphasizing the importance which man places upon feeling and experience and loving. And so, I wonder if the first aid for us for experiencing this power which the Thessalonians experienced, I wonder that this joyful newness in life, I wonder if the first aid for us might not be an openness to life, an expectancy each day, and especially in worship. The expectancy, the anticipation that something will happen, and thus the willingness to receive and experience and feel. Christianity always has been and always will be in tension with society whenever society tends to make man less than what he was intended to be. Whenever society would tend to make him only a brain or only a muscle or only an economic unit. Christianity is always in tension with society whenever society would want to flatten life out and make it a dull, dismal, one-level existence. Christianity, see, man was created to participate in joyful, lifting, exhilarating moments. We only need to be open to the receiving of these moments, receiving and enjoyment of these moments. Second, if we want to receive this power, it is important. Second, if we want to receive this power, it is important to be open to relationships with persons. This is the thing that makes a difference in a person's life. This is the thing that lifts life above the dullness of gray living. Second, if we want to receive this power, which we read about coming to the Thessalonians, the thing which lifted them above where they had been, it is important to be open to relationships with persons. If we want this thing that makes a difference, that lifts life above the dullness of gray living, then we need to be open to relationships with persons. You know, really, the way that things happen to persons is through their relationships with other persons. I guess that men have always known this, and yet it seems that within the last 50, 60, 70 years we have learned it even more, with even greater impact and greater thoroughness than we ever knew it before. We've learned that the essential thing in a child developing into whatever he develops into, the essential thing is his relationships with persons as he is developing. It is so easy, however, to forget the value of relationships. So easy to become so tied up with business, with doing things, with earning, with achieving, that the importance of the relationship seems to slip to the side. So often activity becomes more important than relationships. Production and efficiency become so much more important. And the cultivation of relationships falls by the wayside for the sake of production. Again, to get something of a perspective on our problem, this pull between activity and relationships is something which is not new, but again, which we find among those surrounding the life of Jesus himself. Mary and Martha, the two sisters, when Jesus came to their house, the one of them busily at work doing the last minute things needed to be done to make sure that everything was just right for serving Jesus. Her sister, however, couldn't have cared less about all these little details of the busy work, but instead went and sat down by Jesus and listened to him intensely, to everything he had to say. And her sister, busily at work, becoming very irritated at this person who wouldn't come and help out in the housework, but instead would only sit, just sit. Again, you see, work can become a feverish activity to cover up for the meaningless of life. We can become so anxious and troubled about so many things that the only solution we can see is just to keep so busy that all these problems hopefully will just kind of disappear. And certainly there is value in doing things. But the activities, the doing of things can never become a substitute for relationships. The activities can never become a means of filling the void which is there if relationships are not cultivated. You know the person as well as I do who is too busy for the leisurely cup of coffee, just to sit and talk. A person who is always on the run. A person who really always wants to avoid the direct confrontation with another person. And yet, if we turn our back on relationships with persons, we head down a road in life where nothing can happen to us, where the doors are closed, where life will just remain the same as it always has been. What a disastrous road to take. The chance of newness, the chance of power, the chance of life-changing strength being shut out. Viktor Frankl tells a very interesting story. His time spent in prison in a Nazi concentration camp. An incident where he had the chance to escape, and all had been set up for his escape. And just before he was walking out the door, one of the other prisoners came up to him and said to him, "You too are getting out?" And Frankl reports an uncomfortable feeling which came over him then. And he says that he suddenly decided that the important thing in life was not always his own personal survival, but rather the thing of first importance was his relationships with those about him. So he said to his friend, the other prisoner, "Wait a minute." And he goes outside to let other persons involved know that he would not be leaving with them. He came back and sat down by his friend and tried to comfort him in the plight which they shared together as victims of their circumstances. You see, if we turn our back on relationships, what do we have? If we turn our back on relationships, the doors for change, the doors for newness in our life are closed. See, the important thing are the encounters which we have with persons, not the achievements in life. There's no emphasis more basic in Jesus' ministry than the stress on the priority of personal relationships. And again, Christianity is the guardian of the importance of the personal relationships in a society which so often is impersonal. In a society where so often a person is made into nothing more than a punch card for an IBM machine. You see, there is something which is more important than the utopian efficiency. Again, Christianity is in tension with society here. Certainly we need modern ways of doing things. Still, if we lose the value of the individual and the value of the relationships which individuals have with each other, what have we gained? For it is in these relationships that the door is open for me to find something new, for me to find this power which will enable me to be someone beyond what I am right now. Third, if we are to learn something of this power which the Thessalonians found for themselves in their lives, then we also have to be willing to commit something of ourselves to something greater than ourselves. You see, we really end up with a weak and anemic life if we just take these first two things which I have mentioned. We end up simply sitting around experiencing things and enjoying being with one another. And yet, again, we do nothing but sit. See, the hardest corner to turn in life is probably the corner where we cease simply seeking our own joy and happiness, where we cease simply being concerned for ourselves and become concerned for using ourselves for something greater than ourselves. You see, this is the corner which the rich young ruler could not turn. He wanted eternal life. It was not a matter of paying the price, but rather a matter of adopting the attitude which would allow this eternal life, this newness, this power to flood in upon him. He just could not adopt the attitude of wanting to use what he was and what he had for the good of other people rather than for his own good. See, really in the end, the pursuit of happiness as a goal in itself is an impossible task. Rather, happiness, power, joy, newness comes as a byproduct. It comes on account of something else. It comes as a byproduct of a meaningful activity in which we engage. And only after the successful completion of a task which orients a person away from himself and onto something else greater than himself, only then do we find that into our lives has come something new, something joyful, something with power. Well, this is a principle which is really not too hard to understand. For many of the things which we may desire in life are impossible for us to achieve if we simply concentrate on them, but rather they easily come to us as byproducts. The person who intensely focuses upon the great need and desire to go to sleep very often finds himself with insomnia. Likewise, the person, especially I find with myself, driving a car late at night, intensely focusing upon how sleepy he is and how he must stay awake, finds it all the harder to keep from drowsing. The most desired goals which we have in life so often are byproducts. They come to us only by taking upon ourselves something which often seems even to work against the goal. African women have the straightest backs of any women I've seen. It's amazing. And yet the backs are so straight because of the heavy loads which they continually are carrying upon their heads. A weak ark is strengthened not by lightening the load that's carried by the ark, but by adding to the weight, the load, which is the ark carries it. This is what strengthens it. In the Christian faith, the concept of commitment has always been central. One finds his life, one finds the most desired things in life, not by holding on to life and on to these things, by jealously guarding them, but rather by giving life freely, by losing life in the interest of others. And the paradox spoken by Jesus inevitably is proved to be true. Whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The most miserable person in the world is the one who selfishly guards his time and his resources because he wants to live a life which is happy. And yet, the happiest person in the world is the person who is willing to use his resources and his time, his only concern being good stewardship, good use of them. These are the ones who find something in life, who find those things in life which bring happiness and joy and fulfillment and power, renewal to them. Among the Thessalonians, then, there came a power, something new, something which made a difference among them, something which changed them. How can this happen to us? It happens by our being open to experiences, not being lured by our culture into a formalistic, materialistic, computerized world. But it is possible for us to have experiences, strange experiences, not bizarre, but strange. These are of value. These should be rejoiced in and sought after. Experiences which lift us above the everyday business of life. It is important for us to be open to relationships with persons, not to be lured by culture into being a cog, a functionary, an economic unit, lured by the impersonality of society. Important for us not to allow activities to crowd out relationships. It is important for us to be willing to commit what we have and what we are to something greater than ourselves. Important not to be lured by a culture which beats into our heads, first, last, and always our duty is to ourselves. Look out for number one, for no one else will. Christianity is the guardian of the importance of experience, relationship, and commitment in a time when culture tends to deny their importance. Christianity points to these as the way which life takes on a joy and a meaning and a newness and a power.